Hey everybody, welcome back to our massive open online education course offered by Syracuse University. I'm Rick Burton, the David B. Falk Professor of Sport Management at Syracuse, and I think this is supposed to be the last show that we're going to do, or the last segment of this program. And I didn't think it would be right to kind of do this whole sequence of classes without trying to talk about the future. I mentioned in one of the last classes that I was just in Australia, and I actually heard a professor over there speak about megatrends in sport. And I think it's probably interesting that at least as this whole thing comes to a close, that we talk about what we think is going to happen in the future. And that's kind of hard if you imagine that we've got sports leagues and sport activities taking place all over the world. But let me give you a few thoughts of things that I think you may see over time. Now, caution, some of these may be a little bit provocative and may not be necessarily what you want to hear, but I think there's a chance that some of these predictions will be right. Now, it reminds me, it's kind of funny, I hired a futurist one time, and the great thing about being a futurist is you make all these outlandish claims. You kind of make statements that such and such is going to happen 20 years from now, and the reality is that no one is ever around 20 years later to actually go, that guy was so wrong, he got it completely off. So I'm going to do my best to play the role of the futurist right now and to tell you things that I think could happen. Doesn't mean they will, and it doesn't mean that I'm right. But at least we think that some of my opinions are probably a little bit informed from people I've talked to and situations that I've witnessed as I've gone along. So the first thing is that most of us think when we talk about sports, about professional league sports. The English Premier League, the National Football League, the National Basketball Association. And one of the interesting things is, do we think that league sports will continue to be kind of regionalized to where they are, or will they ultimately become global leagues? Now, we know that leagues are playing games in different places. We've talked about that on one of the earlier shows. But I think it's actually pretty realistic to believe that the day is coming when a league will have teams maybe based all over the world. Now, right now what holds that back is fan avidity. So it's kind of hard to imagine that the English Premier League would have a team in New York City because we might not be sure whether there would be enough New York City fans for an English-based league. The other piece that always comes into play is whether or not transportation is going to catch up in such a way that the players are not going to be disadvantaged for the amount of travel that they have to make or, commit to be a part of the league. But I think what you're going to see is global leagues, and when those global leagues actually start to take place, a lot of the local or regional leagues will probably struggle to keep up with kind of the economies of scale. Big phrase there, I think we used it once before, that the biggest leagues will have, because they'll get the biggest sponsors, and they'll probably get the biggest TV rights deals. So I would say one prediction is look for global leagues, and that could mean the reduction of local leagues. Now, it could also spell certain dooms for leagues that are only played maybe in one area. I don't want to pick on the National Football League, but given that that game, American Gridiron, is only played in one country, essentially, there'd be people who would debate that because it's played a tiny bit in Europe. But its biggest fan base and the most money that is poured into that is almost exclusively US-centric. Well, it could be that because that sport is not played all over the world, that's going to have a difficult time keeping up with a sport like soccer, football, that is played all over the world. So one thing is whether or not we'll see global leagues. The other thing is whether or not we'll see certain big leagues where the sport is not played everywhere possibly come into some difficulty. Basketball is played everywhere, so you could imagine the NBA becoming a big global league with teams everywhere. Soccer, football is played everywhere. What other sports are played around the world? Well, golf is one. We're standing at a golf course in Syracuse, New York, and we could imagine possibly that there'd be an international golf league. So we understand that there's the PGA of America and the PGA of Australia, but at some point we might come to the PGA of the world. Ice hockey is pretty good, played in Northern Europe and played in the United States and Canada, but it may have a difficult time in warm weather areas. We might also find some other sports like auto racing. Formula One already is a global sport, but does that mean that NASCAR has got to become global, or does it mean that NASCAR might face challenges in the future because the economies of scale are going to be such that only the biggest leagues are going to be sustainable? Now, the other thing that I want to talk about in terms of how we might think about predictions for the future is whether or not we're going to have a situation where team sports are going to struggle and be replaced by people playing individual sports or sports where they don't need teammates. Right now, the concept of playing a sport where I've got to have 10 other people on the team means I've got to be in an infrastructure, a system that's going to make it possible for me to get on a team, and the team concept is going to be sustainable. What we may see a lot more of, though, is people actually choosing to do things that don't require teams. And one of the biggest areas we may see in that is just personal fitness. That people may choose to actually become really physically fit, and it's something they'll do by themselves. Maybe they'll do it in a group, but it's not going to be a competitive sport against other teams. It's maybe going to be internally competitive. One other thing that I forgot to mention, and it explains why I'm actually not on screen right now, it's because I've got to go to a fantasy football league draft. Now, if that phrase doesn't mean a lot to many of you, let me explain what's been going on in the United States. It's thought right now that as many as 32 million people are involved in fantasy league gaming, where they actually attend a draft and select their favorite players or the players that they think are going to score the most points, and they create a league that's all managed electronically, digitally. So right now, I'm getting ready to draft for my American Gridiron season, my fantasy team. And where that's kind of relevant for us thinking about the future is the fact that a lot of sports fans in the future may not actually want to become invested in a team that's going to lose, or maybe a team that's not going to have a very good season. So let's just take Crystal Palace in London, or let's take the New York Giants in New York City. A fan of that team may realize that that team is not going to have a good year, but if that fan is in a fantasy league, they will actually be able to draft a group of players and track them through the year. And one of the things that they may start to do is they'll start to imagine themselves as the head coach or as the owner of the team. And they'll actually get a certain kind of pleasure about signing players, cutting players, and competing against their friends. And what it means is their fan avidity for a particular professional team may diminish, and their avidity for individual players may actually go up. Now, avidity is kind of a strange word. It means to be very avid. And what I'm trying to say is the day may come when a fan is less of a Manchester United fan or less of a Baltimore Ravens fan and much more about the team that the fan, the consumer, has actually constructed on their own. Now, think about that as we go forward, that these sports leagues have got to address how they accommodate fantasy gamers. And right now we know that a number of professional NFL teams are actually starting to dedicate fantasy gaming lounges at their stadiums where they're putting up a lot of TV screens so that the fan can actually watch their players actually participate during that Saturday or that Sunday's games. And think about how much different the sports world will be in the future if you don't really care how they do as a team on the field, you only care about particular individual players. We've also got to talk about the way in which sport is going to be sent around the world. Right now, TV seems to be the dominant medium, and in a lot of your countries, that's the primary place where you watch TV. But in the future, and you know that it's coming, we'll start to watch things on our computers or on our iPads, and I think even still going forward, we'll move away from the one-dimensionality of watching it on a screen and go to actually something that is more dimensionalized. Think about holographics, right? And the fact that something that is a holograph actually appears to be right there physically in front of you. And as holographic technology improves, I think a lot of sport is actually going to start to get broadcast that way. Now, there's nothing better than being at the stadium and seeing things in person, but getting to the stadium may get harder and harder. And it could be that going outside is going to be something that becomes less and less pleasant. So while I hope the world doesn't go that way, global warming and other issues like that, congestion, crime, weather conditions could change dramatically in the course of the next 20 years. So I shouldn't do this presentation to you without suggesting that you think about, how do I think sport will change? How do I think I'll consume it differently? How do I think I'll play it differently? And what will it mean for me 20 years from now with maybe my children or my grandchildren? Will I still kind of go to sport the same way, or will I come to it in a different way? Now listen, the rain is starting to pick up, so I think that that's probably as good a place as any for us to end this class, and for me to thank you guys for being with us for these 7 classes. I also want to thank the crew that's really been behind the scenes making it possible. Been a number of people. Bron Adam has done a really great job of coordinating this all, Sam Duncan, and then there's been this great production crew led by Neil Coffey and his team with Rox and Sean and Mary that have just done this great job of editing it all together and hopefully making it that it's been kind of interesting for you. So on behalf of Syracuse University, thanks so much for being with us today, being out here in the rain. Thankfully, hopefully, wherever you are, it's warm and dry. We hope you've enjoyed our massive open online education course, and we look forward to seeing you down the road. If you ever run into me, let me know that you took the class and what you thought of it, and make sure you tell me to get in out of the rain. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.